All right. Beautiful day. All right, Frank. I think we're ready to go.
Okay. Okay, and 3, 2, and 1.
Hey, folks, welcome back to your Frederick Real Estate Update. I am Darren Ahern at RE/MAX Results, bringing you over 21 years experience in the Maryland and PA region. And I also have with me the man, the myth, the legend, the guy with all of the money over at Presidential Bank Mortgage, Mr.
Terry Kernan.
How we doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
We're at the end of August. Remember that song, We're at the End of the World as We Know It? Well, we don't want to get that extreme, but what we will say is we are at the end of August as we know it. And I always think of the end of the summer as the end of August.
I always think of the end of the summer, to me, it comes up so fast. And I've said this on the show, I said it, but after the July 4th week, it's kind of like everything just goes, boom, 1,000 miles an hour, and then all of a sudden, boom, we're here at Labor Day. So
yep. Some people think when their kids go back to school, other people think, Labor Day weekend and all that good stuff. So I like September. Terry, you know why I know you like August, because you have a birthday, right?
Yeah.
And you know why I like September, right?
Yeah.
Because I got one. So that's why.
Big birthday coming up.
My birthday present when I was growing up, boys and girls, was getting back to go to school. My birthday sometimes fell on the first day of going back to school. So, all right, thanks for tuning in. This is the one time I do not, I had a little computer glitch, I do not have the exact numbers of all of our inventory and everything like that. But I will say last week, we had 392 homes. My guess, Terry, is we're a little bit above 400. So we're not going to be able to get into all the numbers, but I promise you next week I'll have those. But let's go ahead and get right on into it, Terry. We obviously just checking back. August 17th on Saturday, if you haven't listened in on www.wfmd.com, doing a drop-down menu, and make sure you go on our Frederick Real Estate Update, and you will definitely see where Kenny McLean, our appraiser in the area, on the 17th was here with us in studio, and that's where you can go back and listen to his updates and what he has seen in the market right now and predicting a little bit as far as that. And then we're going to go ahead and get right into today's stuff here. Terry, what is some of the more common questions from buyers and everything? We've been going through our top 22 questions and things. When is the best time of the year to buy a home? Terry, if somebody asked you that, what are you going to tell them?
I'm going to tell them that the best time to buy a home is when nobody else wants to buy a home. Okay, so what I'm saying is the best time, in my opinion, is to buy when the demand is very low, because you don't have 5 or 6 people. Now, the busiest time to buy a home is generally the spring market, right?
Oh, yeah.
We probably both agree with that.
And when do we define the spring market?
For years it was like March 1st, and then it moved to February 1st, and now it's really January 2nd.
January 2nd is the spring market.
So that's the spring market, and that's where things get really heated up. But just before the spring market, where people are gearing up, November, December, slow times, I feel that that's a pretty good time to buy, because you're buying before the house gets that appreciation bump in, February, March, April, May, right? So most appreciation that we experience happens in the first 6 months of the year, or at least that's been the trend for the last 2 years.
Yep.
So that's kind of what I tell people. Now's a good time to buy, because things have slowed down. A lot of people are sitting on the sidelines waiting for the election. That's what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen it slow down tremendously, where we have people in the hopper.
Oh, yeah.
They're just not hopping.
Yeah, tons.
They're just not hopping.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's true. All right. So, obviously I could give the broad sense. When's the best time to buy a home? It's when you need a home. But time of the year, that's what people really want to know is time of year. One of the things I thought about too, Terry, is January, like financially as far as the market just heating up. And as you know, you've told me time and time, and we shared it on here, January has traditionally been the month where interest rates for mortgages have been the lowest out of all 12 months typically, right? So from a financial standpoint, some people would think and say, well, let's wait till January. But that's when the buyer demand kicks in like crazy. So now you're getting bidding wars and the prices go up. And so, and there's no guarantee where rates will be in January. If they'll be the lowest traditionally as far as all the months in the whole year. So
Yeah, people normally don't like to sell their house between Thanksgiving and Christmas.
Yep.
A lot of people don't sell their house. When Mary Susan and I bought our house 31 years ago, we actually settled on December 8th. We put a contract in November, settled on December 8th. And basically, you know, it was a very, very slow time of the year. But these people that we bought from, the house had been vacant for a while and they had to move. So, you know, it worked out for us. But that's when I last bought my house, was in December.
which means you were eating turkey and heading off to a home inspection.
Yes, we were. Well, actually, the day after Thanksgiving, they let us in the house to paint.
There you go. That's what I mean. You were utilizing the holidays for good purpose.
Yes, sir.
That's funny. Yeah, you don't see that too often, but it does happen, no doubt about it. So, and the other big question is, why does it seem like mortgages are so complex? And what is the best way to get qualified for a mortgage? We still hear this.
Yeah, the best way to get qualified, it's so simple to get qualified, especially with today's technology. You know, our industry has gone from being a paper-heavy, overwhelming industry down to, I can talk to somebody right now, and while I'm talking to them, I can send them a link to the loan application. They can fill it out, and we can get the pre-qualification process rolling within 10, 15 minutes. It's not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what today's, you know, I'm not going to say millennials or whatever, but the younger generation is all about instant, like everything's instant, boom, boom, boom. So that's kind of what we've done. So why are they confusing? That was the big question. Or why are they complicated, or why are they difficult? They're only as difficult a lot of times as you as a borrower make it. Okay?
Wow. Okay.
And what I mean by that is when we get a loan application, we make sure that we collect all the documentation. And sometimes there's not such an urgency on the borrower's part to get the documentation back. And then what you also want to do is make sure that the documentation that you turn in doesn't garner more conditions or ask more questions, like large deposits on your bank account. You know, have a reasonable explanation. Why is it difficult? Why is my loan difficult? And part of it is, well, it's your situation. If you're self-employed, that's going to be a little more, you know, difficult situation. So things happen, but by, you know, 95% of all things are so smooth and so effortless because of the way that the industry has rolled.
Yep.
And then there are, you know, 5% where you've got, you know, we've got a challenge on our hand. A gentleman came in to buy a house and disclosed that he didn't have a foreclosure, didn't have anything, no bankruptcies, disclosed that nothing had gone wrong in his credit. His credit didn't show anything. But when we pulled a fraud report, it said that he had a foreclosure just 2 years ago. So that causes a big problem. And when asked, he said, yeah, I had a foreclosure, but my lawyer told me that I've been relieved of all my responsibilities. And the lawyer wasn't wrong, but what the lawyer didn't tell him is when the house went to foreclosure, when it was sold, that's when he was relieved of his responsibilities because there was enough equity in the property. So this was a very, very easy deal,
Right.
but now has become a very, very difficult deal. Okay, because and the borrower wasn't trying to hide it.
Right.
The lawyer said,
Yeah.
you're absolved of any wrongdoing. You know, it's not on your credit report. You're fine. But the lawyer wasn't a real estate lawyer.
Yeah, they don't know the laws of that,
Yeah.
about that.
And so basically, you know, and let me just explain something about this, which is very unique. This person became a co-borrower on a loan for a family friend 17 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. and that family friend never got them off the mortgage and wouldn't take them off the mortgage, and eventually foreclosed on the mortgage, foreclosed on the house.
Oh boy.
And so because you were the co-borrower, if you didn't make those payments and the borrower didn't make the payments, you were a non-occupying co-signer, a co-borrower, you were responsible for that loan. You just can't have an attorney write a letter and say, hey, no big deal. You're done. This never happened kind of thing. It's not that way. So that was a very interesting one that popped into my mind right when you said that.
All right, good. What else? I guess is there anything else of that situation? But I think for me, from what I've learned, and I give a sheet, as you know, to all my buyers in my buyer packet that already gives them a heads up of what you're going to need as a lender. The last 2 years tax returns and pay stubs and bank statements, and you need this and this and this and all those other things. And if you have VA disability benefit stuff or whatever, you got to have all that you got to get that stuff right away. And I think that's part of the complexity, is that if a buyer doesn't have the documentation ready to go to send to you, it can feel very daunting to be like, oh my gosh, now he needs this, Terry needs this, now they want this, now they want this. And all of a sudden, before you know it, they're just like, man, I don't know where that receipt went.
Right.
It can get to be that like really, but yet it's not rocket science, but it can feel like it if you have to keep updating and finding more information that you didn't even already have, or you never had it. And it's like, well, I didn't know about that medical bill that went delinquent and got put into collections. That was 10 years ago. How in the heck would I find that now? That kind of stuff that comes up on a credit report, that's a big surprise, because Terry, I'm amazed. 90% of people in this country do not get a copy of their current, in the last year, credit report, and they have no idea what's on it, and they don't even know how to read it. Not that they're dumb. They just don't know. They just don't know what they don't know. And I have been a nutcase about having LifeLock and having my information and personal information secure as possible because of the fraud, and my identity got stolen 15 years ago. And all you need to do is go through that one time, and you will definitely pay the money to try to lock down your credit information and personal information and all that as much as you can. But my point goes back to that I also get a credit report every year. Every year I get one, and I look it over to make sure, is there anything weird or not accurate on it or whatever. And you can sleep good at night in that. And I think that's pretty much free. They have free ones, and they're pretty cheap to get. But it's really important to get. And I think that's the scary part, is a lot of people, they don't even know what's on there. And then when they see it or they find out from you and say, hey, what's this car repo? What's this delinquent payment here? Or what about the credit card here? Or you have 10 credit cards. And they're like, no, I don't. I only have one I use. Well, you got 9 other accounts that are still open. Did you know about them? No, we haven't used that credit card in 5 years. And then what do we do about it? So all of a sudden, that's where the complexity becomes, is when you're not up to date with the information or what you guys require, right?
Yes. And I had one time where the wife said, hey, I don't want to share my credit report with my husband because there's some credit cards on there that he doesn't know about. And I said, okay.
I ain't going there.
It's difficult because it's a joint credit report.
Oh, no. So, yeah, they're joint, right?
Yeah, so she had to fess up. So, but yeah, yes. So there are some surprises on credit reports. But the bottom line is just about every deal out there is made so easy these days because of the flow, the paperless, the boom, 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 press a button, boom.
Yep.
That
Makes
we
it easier.
really don't have, though. In the olden days, things got pretty difficult.
Yeah, and the nice part is, once somebody does an online credit application with you guys, you're able to review it, talk to them, go over it, and pretty much figure out quickly what's the right loan type, amount, down. We can start running what is known as good faith estimates. Terry, I had a buyer recently. They didn't want to do a loan application. They just wanted to know what the interest rate is, and they just wanted good faith estimate numbers and how much is it going to cost me to buy this house. And I said, there is no lender that can give you that without you doing a full loan application. And they got mad. They were like, why? because they don't know anything about you. They don't know your credit amount. They don't know anything. They don't know your income. They haven't verified nothing. That stuff must be established first before you get the numbers and get to know exactly what the payment is going to pretty much look like, right? Because if they don't do that, you're guessing. You're guessing, and we're not playing guessing games with mortgages or anything else in real estate.
Yeah, and let me explain something very quickly. One of the number one questions I get before we do a loan application is, how much is this going to cost me?
Oh, wow.
And
okay,
we get that question a lot, and my answer is this. It costs $0
to do an application.
to do an application.
Yep.
It does not start costing any money. You can get approved, you can get pre-approved, you can get approved, you can get pre-qualified, whatever you do, wherever you are in the process, it doesn't cost you anything to work with us.
Right.
Okay?
Good.
When it starts is once you've established a contract between you and the buyer, or you and the seller.
Right. Once we have a fully ratified contract.
That's when we order an appraisal.
Yep.
That's when you order a home inspection. And that's when the money starts rolling. Now, we have you pay your appraisal up front.
Yep. That's common.
And everything else is paid at the settlement table. Or you can pay your insurance up front, but we can also pay that at the settlement table. So it does not cost anything.
Yeah.
To sit down with a loan officer, at least at Presidential Bank. It doesn't cost a dime.
Yep. And that's the thing. You want to do that as soon as possible. The other big question, I think, with all this getting prepared-wise complex, one of the other big questions is you get, I'm sure, a lot is, if I do a full loan application, I heard it's going to hurt my credit.
Yes, I get that a lot. So let's talk about that. When you pull your credit, what we do is we pull a soft pull. And we kind of look under the hood, see what the scores are, see who you owe. It is not a full-blown credit report. There's really not a difference that I can tell other than, they're pulling it. But we'll find out what your credit is and where you're going. We'll get you pre-qualified. All of that is on the before you get a contract, okay? Before you even go look at a house, you should be doing that.
Yeah.
But I want to touch on something very quickly when you said credit. You have the ability to opt out of phone calls, and it's
getting a
barrage of phone calls. You have to opt out in order for that not to happen, and we basically try to coach you to do it, but not everybody does it. And then when they get 45 calls, because what happens is the 3 reporting companies can legally sell your information. I can't tell Darren what your credit score is or anything like that about the loan, but somehow the 3 credit reporting agencies resell your information, and I believe it's criminal. It's not. A law was passed to protect these guys, but they can call you and they'll sell it to 100 different people, whoever's willing to buy your information, and that information is your email, your phone number, your credit scores, who you owe, things like that. So if you get the chance, just opt out of those phone calls.
Yep. You'll let them know how to do that.
Sorry.
No, that's good. All right. Obviously, all the other questions and things in this segment dealing with the complexities and the nuances and the ins and outs and everything that's required to get to pre-approved and the loan approved and all the things, get with Terry on that. He is going to guide you personally, hold your hand, and make sure you're comfortable and understand everything before you make any decisions at all. So as we finish up today's program, Terry, one of the big things that's still kind of lingering a little bit, is the big thing. You had said you've heard about it when I'm selling my home, buying a house, and all that stuff. This compensation, how does compensations, whatever you want to call it, I call it marketing fee, however you want to call it, how does that work? How is it affecting things? So right before we go into that, I do want your last minute prediction. Before the Fed meets in September, are rates going to get cut 1/4 or 0.5% real quick?
Well, last week I talked about it, and my prediction still holds true. and that's going to be a 0.5% cut.
All right, 0.5%. And my prediction that my Atlanta Falcons are going to win the Super Bowl this year, that still holds true.
That's a 0.5% chance.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Redskins.
Yeah.
And you guys have a 0.25% chance of winning the Super Bowl. That's what I'm talking about. All right, hail to those Redskins. Well, wait a minute. Hail to the Commanders or whoever they are these days. I don't know. All right, let's get into it right now. Terry, the big question is about selling a home, buying a home, compensations, commissions. How do those work? What specifically, before I go into some things, ideas I got, because I deal with this all day, and I just literally had a listing this morning. I have 2 more this weekend, 3 in the last 4 days. And I just met with a seller this morning, and I'll tell you what he said about when I explained a few things. But what are you hearing? What are your biggest thoughts about this whole thing that's been kind of going on that's erupted?
I think the biggest thing is disclosing to them, not just say, here, sign this paper, but actually having that discussion with them. And the agents that I've talked to said that that's so very important, because they really don't know. Because if the seller chooses not to pay the buyer's commission, the buyer's agent's commission, then they don't have to. Now, so all that's got to be worked out up front. So far, and I brought up a point in the managers meeting, anybody that's a seller, chances are they're going to become a buyer right after they sell this house.
That's true.
Right? So if they're going to be hard-nosed and say, I am not paying a buyer's commission at all, their chances are they're moving up as well.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
So they're going to be faced with the same dilemma, because they're going to be a buyer shortly after. So I think that what I've seen so far is that it hasn't been that big of a deal. But it's only been 2 weeks. Right? It's only been 2 weeks.
Yeah.
But
brand new.
But I think that when a seller is reminded, hey, you're going to be a buyer at the same time that you're being a seller, so you've got to think about how you want to be treated when you're a buyer.
Woo. That, you know what? I didn't think of that emotional dynamic.
And people I've explained that to, they're like, wow, that makes total sense.
Yeah, because now we're playing about fairness and ethics and sandbox.
Correct.
Yeah, we're playing in the sandbox. I don't want sand thrown in my face if I throw it to somebody else. And here's the deal. What I experienced in the last 2 weeks, and the questions that I've answered, and some things that we've covered it a little bit. I was at a listing today up in Fairfield, Pennsylvania. Met with a brand new seller off the internet. They got me off the internet, and we met for about 2 hours, and it was really good. And this came up, of course, in our presentation. I just said, hey, what do you know about the changes with the whole NAR and the government getting involved in the DOJ and all the hoopla in the news and the talking heads and everything? I said, what have you heard? And he says, a little bit. I know there was the government stepped in, and they kind of wanted they wanted more disclosure. They said that for commissions, that everything's now, it's negotiable now. And I said, well, it's always been negotiable. And then they want to know, well, what he said, what really has changed though? Because somebody said over here that sellers don't have to pay commission, or this doesn't have to happen, and they got their own agent now. And I said, yep, that's the problem. There's a whole bunch of muddy waters. It's dying down very quickly because not much has really changed. And so the biggest thing I explained to him is, we're not allowed to put compensations in the MLS. It's no longer broker to broker. It's the seller. Sellers can still have the opportunity to disclose upfront what they would like to offer buyer broker compensation to bring a buyer, which is, we talked about that. You can do it up front. That's my suggestion. Or you cannot. You can leave it blank, and you can dictate if you want to offer any of that at the time of an offer. And I said, what do you think is that would be the negative of not offering any commission, or playing that card game that says, well, it depends on the offer. It depends on what the buyers offer. I said, do you see any problems with that? He immediately said, well, yeah. First of all, it sounds like if there's not compensation being shared and split or offered, then who's going to work for free as an agent? And I said, oh, wow. Isn't that an epiphany? The seller already knew nobody's going to work for free. So that's not going to be to my benefit. It's to my disadvantage. And it's not going to bring buyer agents and people more willing to come and see my home. So he knew that right away. And he didn't even know a lot about what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And he hasn't sold a house in 20 or 30 years. So this isn't like a person that's really up to speed that just sold a house 5 years ago or 3 years ago. Oh, I know it was said, I know all that. No, I'm doing what works. I'm doing what's most beneficial for me. And that means I'm going to offer, I want to pay my agent, I want professional representation, and I want to offer it to bring the most buyers possible. Because you're right. If I don't offer it, I could lose buyers because if they may not have the money to pay their agent, and no one's working for free, I guess. And so therefore they may not be able to see my house and buy my house because no one's going to work for free.
Yep.
So there's the issue. So that was really good that was pretty easy to clear up and go through. And then of course, talking about the biggest other change on the buyer side is we as agents, we by law, we can't show a house without a buyer broker agreement in place. I can't just go show you a house. So we've always done that anyways, as far as having a buyer broker agreement in place. We need to have that established.
But now it's a law.
But now it's a law. Now the buyers have to know you're responsible for your compensation. You always have been. Even if the seller is offering compensation, then it's really not on you, Mr. Buyer. But if they don't, or there's a shortfall, it's always been on you. And we have to establish that before I even take you to see homes. I just showed a home, Terry, 2 days ago. I explained everything, sent it in an email. Buyer called me back and said, no problem. That makes perfect sense. Of course, you're not working for free. And we're going to do this. And they signed it on the spot. And I just showed them a home the other day, right after, before we even went to the house. And tonight, looks like tonight at 5 o'clock or so after, we're writing an offer. We already have it done. It's in place. It's already done. And I already know, even though it wasn't in the MLS, I already spoke with the listing agent, and the listing agent said, yeah, the seller's offering XYZ%. I said, great, no problem. It was already being done. It's nothing that we have to deal with. So this is the only difference. More transparency, more paperwork, different forms. And as long as everybody's on the same page, 99% of everything, in my opinion, is pretty much going to stay the same.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel the same way.
Yep. So that's really what's going on. That's really all it is. So, all right. Hey, folks, thanks for tuning into your Frederick Real Estate Update with Terry and I. And make sure you go back each week and listen to our programs. Any questions, let us know. And we're always here for you. Happy buying and selling. Take care now. All right. Thanks, guys.